Here's a story from 1881 that I find fascinating. This was in a newspaper, and this story says that there was a gentleman who was driven out of the house by spirits. The spirits apparently played satanic type music every day at 4 o'clock. So this takes place at the Old McGee Homestead on 19th Street. Okay, I don't have the town though, but here we go. So two reporters go out because they hear the story of this gentleman who has fled his home, and they decide to go out and kind of investigate the house and figure out what's going on. And here's what they have to say. The investigators found the abode of Spooks, which is the original McGee Homestead, situated in a pasture on 19th, about 200 yards west of Main Street. The house is a one-story frame house in the shape of the letter T, containing 3 rooms with low ceilings and an old-fashioned fireplace. In the rear is an L, which is the original log house, laterally used as the kitchen. Immediately in the rear is a small, tumble-down cow stable, and to one side, a few feet, is another and larger stable. The house is surrounded by large spreading oak trees, which around the premises in the twilight added to its ghostly appearance. In this house, whole generations of McGees lived and died, and after they quitted it for more suitable quarters, it remained uninhabited for quite a long time. The house had a lot of spiders, some bats, and was very quiet. The ghostly manifestations have been known to the neighbors for some time, and in fact, the house always had been kind of shunned as a place of spirits. Like, people in town all talked about it. So the gentleman who had lived in the house moved there about 8 months ago and first noticed kind of like weird manifestations going on for about a month before he fled. From that time until last week when he moved out, the ghost played a matinee daily, doing acts described in his story. So this is why he fled the house. The gentleman first objected to saying much about the ghostly experiences for fear that he would be talked about in town, and he didn't really want to tell people because he didn't think they'd believe him. But finally, a reporter did approach him, and he was assured by the reporter that ghostly visitations are by no means rare, and in this enlightened age, he finally unburdened himself and told the story. He says, and I quote, "I first noticed this trouble about 4 weeks ago. We lived in the house about 8 months altogether. One of the first things I noticed was my boy's shoes being taken off of his feet while he was asleep in the room we were sitting in. They disappeared completely, and we never found them until after we moved. Then they were just discovered laying some distance from the house. I did not see the shoes taken off. I never saw anything done, but when the boy laid down, he had shoes on, and when he woke up, they were gone. Another time, an earring was taken out of my little girl's ear. The next day, the earring disappeared, and the day after that, a ring which fitted her finger so tightly that I thought it would have never fallen off, went missing. A week ago last Friday, all of the chairs in the south room were turned over. The furniture was generally mixed up and everything disarranged. I didn't sleep in that room anymore, but moved my bed into the kitchen. 2 young men who worked for me thought they'd sleep there. The first night it was all right. They felt a little uneasy, but nothing happened except that a lamp went out 3 times in succession. Saturday, their bed was torn all to pieces, their bedclothes was thrown on the floor, and the kerosene lamp was thrown on the bed. Chairs on the table were on the table, and the tables in other rooms were upside down. Something mysterious happened every day for 4 weeks before we moved. But Saturday was the worst." He continues, he says, "All of the children's clothes were taken away. One day my wife bought 2 pairs of new stockings for the little girl and locked them up in a trunk. When she went to get them the next day, one of each pair was gone. After we moved, we found some of the clothes had disappeared. Some were under the house, others were under the porch. Several things were wrapped up in paper when we found them. Pieces of my wife's sewing machine were continually disappearing. I can't tell you half of the things that happened, but there was enough to make me think I'd had enough of it, and we just cleared out. So these two newspaper reporters had listened to this story, and they decided to go to this house. And they said that they had to summon up all their courage and go. And they went into the house. They were going to defy the ghosts, and they were like, we're going to stay here. Well, as they get into the house, and these big, huge oak trees that kind of loom over the house is casting all these shadows, they're getting a little spooked. And they said that there was an air of ghostly loneliness that hung over the place. And they decided, no matter how nervous they were, that they were going to be there, and they're going to report, they're going to write everything that happened. So one of them starts singing this hymn, and I guess it's called Genevieve. I'm not sure about it. I've never heard of it, but this hymn he starts singing this song, and it's followed suit by other hymns that he starts singing. So these two reporters start singing, and the music is echoed through the deserted rooms, and they think this would have terrified anything in the shape of a ghost. But for several hours, the reporters said that they held the fort in the ghostly halls, after which they continued their concert in the barn outside. They said every nook and corner was deserted except for a crowbar and spade, which lay on the floor in the front room. Not even a ghostly whisper was heard, and no specter forms were visible. Sometime after midnight, these reporters, or ghost hunters as they were actually called, gave up their vigil and struck for the thickly settled district, somewhat skeptical and decidedly chilled from sitting around in the dewy grass. So all in all, everything that happened to the family, of all of the activity that happened to the family, nothing happened to the reporter. So, what do you think? Was the family actually, did they create a poltergeist, perhaps? Or was the house haunted, but we simply don't have any more information on it, and the reporters just didn't experience anything that night? Or were the reporters not open to a ghostly presence, and maybe that's why it didn't show itself? Anyway, leave a comment and let me know your thoughts. I thought this was a rather fascinating story to bring to you.